Life has a way of throwing us into situations that feel unbearable, moments where the weight of our struggles seems too heavy to carry. You've been there, wrestling with circumstances that make you question everything. You've prayed, you've fought, and yet the doors remain closed. It's easy to believe that struggles are a form of punishment, that somehow you're being pushed aside, overlooked, or forgotten. But let me tell you something, your struggles are not there to break you, they are there to prepare you. God never wastes pain. He never allows a season of struggle without a purpose. Every tear you've cried, every sleepless night, every disappointment, it's all part of a divine process. Just as gold must go through the fire to be refined, your struggles are refining you, strengthening you, shaping you into the person you were meant to become. You may not see it now, but if you stay the course, you will look back and realize that the very thing you thought would destroy you was the very thing that built you. Think about the story of Joseph. He had a dream of greatness, a vision placed in his heart by God. But before he could step into that destiny, he had to endure betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment. If Joseph had judged his future based on his struggles, he would have given up. But what he didn't see in those moments was that God was preparing him for something far greater than he could have imagined. Every struggle, every setback was positioning him for the palace. When the time was right, what once seemed like defeat turned into a divine setup for his purpose. You might be wondering why life feels unfair right now. You see others moving ahead, doors opening for them, while you remain stuck. You pray, but the breakthrough doesn't come. It's frustrating, I know, but listen. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is equipping you with the strength, resilience, and wisdom that you will need for the next level of your life. If He gave you everything you asked for too soon, you wouldn't be ready to handle it. Sometimes He has to take you through the process to make sure you can carry the blessing when it comes. There are things you're learning in this season that will be critical for your future. Maybe God is teaching you patience, showing you how to trust Him when nothing makes sense. Maybe He's teaching you discipline, pushing you to grow in ways you never would have on your own. What feels like rejection is often redirection. What seems like delay is often divine protection. You don't see the full picture yet, but trust that God does. He knows where you're going, and He knows exactly what it takes to get you there. So don't despise the process. Don't give up in the middle of your struggle. When you feel weak, when you feel like you can't take another step, remind yourself that this is not the end of your story. God is still working. The doors that are closed today will open in the right season. The pain you feel now will one day be your greatest testimony. Stay faithful, stay strong, and trust that what He started in you, He will finish. You've prayed, you believe, you've done everything you know to do, but the breakthrough still hasn't come. The door hasn't opened. The opportunity you were waiting for seems further away than ever. It's easy to feel frustrated, to wonder if God has forgotten about you. You look around and see others moving ahead, stepping into blessings while you remain stuck in the same place. You ask yourself, why is it taking so long? But let me remind you of something powerful today. A delay is not a denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. God's timing is perfect. We live in a world that thrives on urgency. We want things now, instantly, without delay. But God doesn't operate on human schedules. He is not in a hurry. He sees the full picture, every detail, every connection, every obstacle, and He knows exactly when to release what He has for you. If you receive a blessing too soon, before you're ready, it can overwhelm you instead of elevate you. That's why God will often hold back certain things, not to deprive you, but to prepare you. He's not just interested in blessing you, He's interested in sustaining you at the level He's calling you to. Look at David. He was anointed king as a young shepherd boy, but he didn't step into the throne immediately. Years went by, he faced rejection, he was hunted by Saul, he had to fight battles, endure hardships, and walk through seasons of waiting. If David had received the throne too soon, he wouldn't have been ready for the weight of leadership. But during that waiting season, God was building him, strengthening his character, teaching him how to lead, how to trust, how to fight. when the time came, he wasn't just placed on the throne, he was prepared for it. The same is true for you. That delay you're facing is not wasted time. It's a season of preparation. Maybe God is working on your character, developing your patience, deepening your faith. Maybe He's aligning the right people, the right opportunities, making sure that when He opens the door, you'll be ready to walk through it with confidence. What seems like a setback is often a setup for something far greater than you imagined. Sometimes God delays things because what you're asking for is too small compared to what He wants to give you. You may be praying for a certain opportunity, but God has something bigger in store. You may be asking for a door to open, but He's planning to build a whole new path just for you. If you rush ahead, you might settle for something far less than what He intended. That's why waiting is not a punishment, it's protection, it's alignment. It's God making sure that when you step into your blessing, it's not temporary, it's not something you struggle to hold on to. It's something that will last. So don't get discouraged by delays. Don't let impatience make you doubt God's plan. What He promised you is still on the way. The vision He placed in your heart will come to pass, but it will happen in His timing, not yours. When it does, you'll realize that the wait wasn't a waste. It was the very thing that prepared you for what's coming. Trust the process, keep the faith, and know that what's meant for you will never pass you by. There are moments in life when the weight of your struggles feels unbearable. You ask yourself, why am I going through this? Why does it have to be so hard? The pain, the disappointments, the setbacks, it all seems so unfair. But what if I told you that the very thing you're struggling with today will one day become a source of hope for someone else? What if your greatest battle is setting you up to inspire, encourage, and uplift those who will walk a similar path? God never allows pain without purpose. Every tear, every late night spent wondering if things will ever change, every moment you thought you wouldn't make it, it's not just about you, it's bigger than you. Right now, you may not understand why you're going through this, but one day you'll look back and realize that what felt like a breaking point was actually a building point. God is not just working in your life, He's using your life to work in others. Think about it. The people who inspire you the most, the ones whose stories move you, aren't those who had it easy. They are the ones who walked through the fire and came out stronger. They are the ones who faced betrayal, loss, sickness, financial hardship, heartbreak, but they didn't give up. And because they didn't give up, their testimony became a light for others. The truth is, your pain has a purpose beyond what you can see right now. That battle you're fighting isn't just about you. It's about the people who will one day hear your story and find the strength to keep going. It's about the person who is going to need to hear how you overcame depression, how you broke free from addiction, how you rebuilt your life after loss, how you trusted God when everything was falling apart. Your testimony will become someone else's survival guide. Look at Job. He lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health. He went through a season of unimaginable suffering, but in the end, God restored him, not just for his sake, but to show the world His faithfulness. Today, people draw strength from Job's story because it proves that no matter how dark things get, God is still in control. What looked like an ending was really a setup for a greater blessing. And that's exactly what's happening in your life. It may not make sense right now, but your struggles will turn into someone else's hope. One day, someone will come to you, broken and weary, and they'll see in you a living example of what God can do. They'll see proof that pain doesn't last forever, that healing is possible, that breakthroughs are real. Your story will be the reason they keep pushing forward. So don't despise the process. Don't give up in the middle of your struggle. What you're going through today is preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. Your pain has a purpose. Your struggle has meaning. And one day you will stand on the other side of this storm, stronger, wiser, and ready to be the light that someone else desperately needs. Life has a way of knocking you down when you least expect it. You put in the effort, you do everything right, and just when you think you're about to step into something great, you face another setback, another rejection, another loss. It feels like every time you take one step forward, something pulls you 2 steps back. You start wondering if things will ever change, if the struggle will ever end. But what if I told you that every setback is actually a setup for a greater comeback? What if I told you that the very thing trying to hold you down is what's about to launch you higher than ever before? See, setbacks are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that something greater is being prepared. You may not see it yet, but behind the scenes, God is aligning the right opportunities, the right people, and the right moments. What looks like a delay is often divine positioning. That job you didn't get, that relationship that didn't work out, that opportunity that slipped through your fingers, it wasn't a mistake. It was God setting you up for something far better than what you had in mind. Look at Joseph. He had a vision of greatness, a dream given by God, but before he could step into it, he was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. Every part of his journey seemed like a setback. But what he didn't realize was that each of those challenges was positioning him for the palace. If he hadn't been betrayed, he wouldn't have ended up in Egypt. If he hadn't been falsely accused, he wouldn't have been placed in the very prison where he would meet the person who would introduce him to Pharaoh. Every single setback was a setup, and when the time was right, he wasn't just restored, he was elevated beyond what he ever imagined. The same is true for you. That disappointment wasn't the end of your story. That closed door wasn't a failure. That rejection wasn't a defeat. It was a redirection. You may not understand it now, but one day, you'll look back and realize that what you thought was breaking you was actually building you. The struggle was strengthening you, teaching you, preparing you for something greater. Think about a bow and arrow. Before the arrow can be launched forward, it first has to be pulled back. The further it's pulled back, the greater the force when it's released. That's exactly what's happening in your life. You're being pulled back, but it's not for your destruction, it's for your acceleration. The tension, the resistance, the challenges, they are building up the momentum for your comeback. So don't let the setbacks make you lose hope. Don't let the delays convince you that God has forgotten about you. You are being prepared. You are being positioned. And when the time is right, you will see that what was meant to break you was the very thing that lifted you to your greatest breakthrough. Keep the faith because your comeback is closer than you think. There are moments in life when the storm hits so hard that it shakes everything around you. You try to stay strong, but the winds are relentless. You pray for the storm to pass, for the struggle to end, but instead it rages on. It's in those moments that doubt starts creeping in. You begin to wonder if God is even listening, if He sees what you're going through. You question why He hasn't stepped in to calm the storm. But what if I told you that sometimes God doesn't remove the storm, He walks with you through it? Faith isn't about everything going the way you want. It's about trusting that even when things don't make sense, God is still in control. It's about believing that even in the middle of chaos, He has a plan. See, faith isn't proven when everything is easy. It's proven in the struggle. In the moments when nothing seems to be working, yet you still hold on. That's when your faith is tested, refined, and strengthened. Look at the disciples when they were caught in a storm on the sea. The waves were crashing, the boat was shaking, and fear consumed them. But in the midst of it all, Jesus was right there with them. He wasn't worried. He wasn't panicked. He was calm because He knew the storm had no power over them as long as He was in the boat. And when the time was right, He spoke, and the storm ceased. But here's what's important. He allowed the storm to happen. He allowed them to feel the weight of the wind and the force of the waves, not to harm them, but to teach them to trust. That's exactly what's happening in your life. The storm you're facing isn't there to destroy you. It's there to build your faith. It's there to show you that no matter how fierce the wind blows, God is still in control. You may not see it now, but He is using this storm to take you to a greater level of trust, a greater level of strength, a greater level of purpose. It's easy to have faith when things are going well. It's easy to praise God when doors are opening and life is smooth. But real faith is built in the moments when you can't see the way forward, yet you still believe. Real faith is choosing to trust when everything in you wants to give up. Because here's the truth. When you stand firm in the storm, when you refuse to be shaken, you activate the power of God in your life. You position yourself for a breakthrough. The enemy wants you to focus on the size of the storm, to be overwhelmed by the struggle. But what he doesn't want you to realize is that the storm is temporary. The winds will die down, the rain will stop, and when it does, you'll still be standing. You'll come out stronger, wiser, and more unshakable than ever before. Because when you trust God in the storm, you don't just survive, you come out with a testimony that will inspire and encourage others. So don't let the storm shake your faith. Don't let the struggle convince you that God has forgotten you. He is with you. He is fighting for you. And when the time is right, He will bring you through this stronger than ever before. Keep your faith, because your breakthrough is on the other side of this storm. Loss is never easy. There are moments in life when something you held on to slips right through your fingers. A relationship you thought would last forever ends. An opportunity you worked so hard for is taken away. A dream you poured your heart into suddenly falls apart. In those moments, it's hard to understand why. It feels unfair, like something has been stolen from you. You pray for things to change, for what was lost to be restored, but nothing seems to happen. And that's when the enemy whispers, maybe this is it. Maybe you'll never recover from this. Maybe you'll never get back what you lost. But what if I told you that what you lost is nothing compared to what God is about to bring into your life? What if I told you that every closed door, every missed opportunity, every painful ending was actually setting you up for something greater? God never takes something away without having something better in store. It may not feel like it right now, but if you trust Him, you will see that He is a God of restoration. He doesn't just replace what was lost. He increases it, multiplies it, and makes it even greater than before. You may have lost a job, but God has something better lined up. You may have lost a relationship, but God is preparing someone who will love, honor, and cherish you in ways you never imagined. You may have lost money, an opportunity, or a dream, but God is not finished with your story. What's coming will make you forget the pain of what was lost. Look at Job. He lost everything, his wealth, his health, his family. His entire life fell apart, but even in his pain, he didn't turn away from God. He stayed faithful even when it made no sense. And in the end, God restored everything he lost and gave him even more than before. That's what God does. He doesn't just restore, He overflows. He gives back in ways that exceed your expectations, in ways that make you say, now I understand why that had to happen. Now I see why I had to go through that season. You may be in the middle of loss right now. You may be wondering if you'll ever recover, if things will ever be the same. But I'm here to tell you, God is not done yet. What you lost was not the end. What slipped away was not your final chapter. Something greater is coming. It may not happen the way you expect. It may not come in the way you imagined. But when God restores, He does it in a way that will leave no doubt that His hand was on your life the entire time. So don't let loss make you bitter. Don't let disappointment make you stop believing. Keep your faith, keep trusting, because what's coming is greater than what was lost, and when it arrives, you'll look back and realize that God was working all along, turning your pain into something far greater than you ever dreamed.